Is Billy a melee character? Is he actually a tank? Does Billy want a heavy melee a lot? And is Billy actually a lizard in a goat costume? If you answered any of these questions with yes, you're wrong, and you should probably go watch this video. What's up, friends? This is Metro, and today we're gonna talk all about Billy. We're gonna go over his abilities, his playstyles, what builds to use, and secret tech you probably have not heard of. Billy is a DPS tank hybrid character. He is pretty weak in early lane, but once you get his 3 ability to level 2, he starts becoming very solid. He has insane mid game and scales very well into the late game. Great in 1v1s and teamfights alike. He benefits from all 3 categories evenly and can be very versatile with builds. Alright, Billy is a gun brawler. He wants to get up close, but he can also get some spirit items to enhance his kits. Most of the damage being done by Billy is actually coming from his gun. He has the 4th highest gun scaling in the game, which means on max level, there's only 3 other characters that do more damage than him with the gun. And that really addresses the first major misconception. Most Billys, in every rank up to Eternus, play him strictly as a close range character that melees a lot. And the only way you really die on Billy is if you get parried. So, what if I told you we could create a build and play him in a way to where you don't have to melee at all, and you still get all the value out of the character. Sounds good? Alright. Billy's number 1 rule really is you don't want to melee until you bait out a parry of the enemy. And then, even after, you don't want to heavy melee, you just want to spam light melees. Why is that? So, Billy, unlike any other character in the game, has a very specific passive that allows him to melee faster and allows him to walk while meleeing. If you look at a character like Abrams, right? If I spam light melees and I walk forward, notice how every time I melee, I slow down and almost come to a halt, right? Now, if you compare this to Billy,
What the hell are you staring at, buddy?
sorry, there we go, unlagged. You actually have no slowdown on your movement ever with the melee, plus the melee is faster. So this is the light melee of Billy, and just in comparison again, something like Abrams, it's a lot slower. So what does this mean? All comes back to what I talked about with heavy melees, right? A heavy melee, if you guys don't know, does twice the damage of a light melee in this game. And the reason a lot of people heavy melee is 1 heavy melee is faster than 2 light melees, right? For any character that is not Billy. Billy is the exception, right? So what does that mean? If we're going into a fight with Billy and we engage and we get light melees off, it's gonna be way more beneficial, A, because, you know, they can't get parried as easily because they're not predictable, but B, because we can keep, you know, being melee range at all times. If we're looking at Billy's abilities on base level, they seem all very straightforward, right? The 1 is a bash that just slams the ground in front of you. The 2 is a ram that rams you into an enemy, and if you hit them, it's gonna take you and the enemy up into the air. The 3 is probably the most complicated ability. It's called Blasted. It gives you a passive that allows you to do more damage to targets that you hit with a melee, right? So it lowers their fire rate, it provides bullet amp, and every time you melee, you heal. Now there's a caveat to that. Light melees are half as effective, but again, we don't care because our light melees are really fast on Billy, right? So this is the way to sustain. This is the way to catch up to the enemy because it also gives you movement speed. And it is the very first skill that we're going to use in lane. And this is like what kind of wins us the lane on Billy or what doesn't lose us the lane. Because Billy is actually not a very good laner, but we'll get into that in a second after I go into the abilities, okay? And then the ultimate Chain Gang is one of the best ultimates in the game. Basically what it does is it creates an aura around you. Anyone in that aura will get chained. And at the end of that aura, it's going to pull everyone towards you. The only way to break the chain by the enemies is getting out of line of sight and staying out of line of sight for like a second, right? So if I ult them and see, the funny thing is a lot of the time, even when they get out of line of sight in time, it's not going to help them because it takes up to a second for the chain to break, right? So yeah, so the chain broke there. So that's the only way for the enemy to get out of line of sight. What does that mean for the ult? Really strong in mid boss, right? Really strong in team fights. But let's get deeper into like the actual abilities. There is quite a lot of tech you can do with every single one. Bash down has a mechanic to where you can hold the bash in the air for a bit and then slam down. This is not going to increase your damage, but what this allows you to do is it allows you to turn in the air, right? So if you're about to bash an enemy and you think they're going to double back, you can like, you know, readjust But there's also other really good movement tech with this. If you join up in a fight and you jump in and you bash down, right? You go kind of far, but you can do the same thing where you jump dash in and then you hold the one, you hold it for just a tiny second and you will go a lot further actually. So notice how I got a lot further in, right? So this tag, you know, deceivingly simple, and it's a really good ability on base. It does melee damage and spirit damage. And it displaces the enemy. What displacement means is they're gonna get knocked to the floor, kind of like a lash slam, right? But there is tech with it. Same for the 2. The 2 seems pretty straightforward, right? You can ram them, but you can also jump, a simple jump before you use the ram. And then you have the directional control, which means you can catch people in the air, right? You can get a Vindicta, or you can catch someone on a bridge. Like if you're fighting on a lane and the bridge is in the middle, right? You can jump and catch people off guard on the bridge. Yeah. And the 3 obviously is, as I said, it's the most complicated mechanic. You proc this, right? And every time you melee, you get overhealth. What overhealth means is it's not healing. It can't get anti-healed, right? So this is health that goes up the more you hit the enemy with a melee. Plus, every time you hit a melee, you extend the timer on Blasted by 4.5 seconds, right? Which means if you get a few melees off in a fight, suddenly Blasted is gonna last for half an eternity, right? And this is like really the thing that lets Billy fight. You really want to avoid starting a fight on Billy if you don't have Blasted up. This is what makes him strong, because it gives us health back, and you will do more damage with the bullets to an enemy, right? So this is the main thing that you need to actually use. So, ult, we can talk about the level ups in a bit. But yeah, in general, that's kind of how you play the character, and it seems pretty straightforward. Now, why do I think you wanna shoot on Billy? And why would I not recommend running full spirit or full melee? You might have success, if you're watching this and you're a Billy player, you might have had success so far running Billy as a melee character, right? The issue with melee on Billy is people will expect it, right? They know that you will get health back by hitting the melees, so they will get ready to parry, and a parry is almost always or quite often a death sentence for Billy, right? So the higher you go in rank, the more the enemy will be aware of you meleeing, and the more the enemy will parry. And this is especially true for heavy melees, right? If you're new and you're watching this video, you can probably get away with a lot of heavy melees, but the higher you go in rank, the more experienced players become. Heavy melees are just very easy to predict and to counter, right? There's a loud sound, so even if they're not looking at you, they have enough time to react and parry, right? It's quite a long cast time. And that's why we basically never ever want to hit the heavy melee button. Now you might say, but Metro, what happens if the enemy parries, right? Why don't I heavy melee after? Again, same reason, 2 quick melees do the same damage as the heavy, or almost the same damage. And it will allow you to keep on running into him, right? What a good player will do is, if they miss a parry, they will try to jump your heavy melee, right? They can dodge your heavy melee. Or they will immediately dash out and avoid your heavy melee. If I keep my distance, right? Or not keep my distance, if I keep close contact with them after they parry, and I just keep on running into them and quick melee, I might miss one, right? But I'll get the damage and I'll get the healing in that I need, right? And I really want you to think of the melees as more of a reload tool. And that's the main mechanic of the melees, right? The Wreck-It passive makes it so as long as I hit melees on enemies, I will reload, which is like the main farming mechanic for Billy, right? I can do this in the jungle, where I just hold down mouse 1, and if I got low on ammo, I heavy melee, and I immediately go back to full health, okay? On the same way, you can also do 2 quick melees, by the way. Quick melees refill like half the magazine, so you can easily do 2 quick melees instead. It's basically the same time. It's just a bit more spammy, so I don't like doing it against creeps in the jungle. Okay. Which I guess now is the time to look at what items we really can get value out of on Billy. And here's where the tricky part comes in, and a part that most people don't understand. Most people start the lane off with the 3, which is what I do too, right? And they get 2 points in 3. And this is what I do too in my build, which is called Metro Hyper Carry build. What this allows us is, after we cast it, we instantly get a 1 charge back. And the 1 does count as a melee, right? So it does heal us from blasted. So the combo in lane is you start being strong when you get 2 points in 3. So you go in, you smack once, you proc blasted, you get a 1 back, and you smack again, right? That way you can get a double smackdown or a double bash down on the enemy, and you heal health, right? And then you're in blasted and you shoot. Or melee. Quick melee only, right? And that's basically the combo in lane. And then most people get a few value points here and there, right? Maybe a cooldown reduction on bash down, maybe a rising ram cooldown, or maybe an ult point. And then they max the blasted because it seems really good, right? Like plus 50 melee bonus health. Until you realize there's a better strat for a lot of cases. If we, after lane, max out the 1, it doesn't seem like a lot changes, right? It says now deals 60% heavy melee damage. But what this really does is it changes bash down completely. It turns bash down from a light melee attack to a heavy melee attack. That also means that we get double the healing of blasted. So let me just show you what this means. If I have my 1 maxed and I proc blasted and I hit the slam, I get 80 healing from pissed, right? Okay. Now if we do the same thing, but instead of maxing the 1, we're gonna max the 3. Right? I'll do the same combo. Well, not combo. I'll use the same 2 spells. Ready to rumble, baby. It's actually only 65. So you get less healing, even though you just upgraded the blasted. And the simple reason is, the 1 still counts as a light melee. Now, how can we take this further? What items in the game function the exact same way? To where, you know, if we level up the 1, we get more value. Well, there's 2 of them. Spirit Snatch and Life Strike. Both of these items give insane value on Billy. Because they're melee items, but because your 1 counts as a melee, you don't even have the risk of meleeing, right? But as you can see on both of those, it says the cooldown is twice as long for light melee hits, right? On both of those. Which means is, if you buy those items, which we're buying in my build, right? If you buy those items and you do a bash down that is not maxed, right? What's gonna happen is, they go on a very long cooldown, both of them. Spirit Snatch is going to go on a 12-second cooldown, and Life Strike is going to go on an 8-second cooldown, right? And you really want to proc these items as often as possible, especially Spirit Snatch, because every person you hit with Spirit Snatch is going to give you more spirit resist, and it's going to take spirit away from the enemy, right? So if you're in a group of like 3 people, right, and you hit all 3 with the bash down, so what's going to happen? Right now I have 0 spirit resist, and if I hit all 3, suddenly I'm on 45 spirit resist, which happens a lot, right, in fights. 3 is probably ideal. You know, with the ult you can get even more, but even 2 is value, right? Like, so you get a massive amount of spirit armor, right? That also means that you want to proc this over and over and multiple targets, which means we don't want to use a light melee to do this, right? That's the main reason we're maxing bash down before blasted. Because this cuts our cooldowns on our 2 melee survival items in half, right? So, winding back just a second. My skill build is we get 2 points at blasted in the lane, and then I get 1 value point in the chain gang, just for lower cooldown, because chain gang is insane, right? And then I max the 1 all the way. Bang, bang, bang. And the beauty of this build is, if you follow it left to right, at the point where you buy Life Strike, you will also have exactly enough level ups, or close to enough level ups, it's basically at the same point, where you have a max bash down. So that is your first power spike. What is a power spike? Power spike is points in time where your hero is just better than the enemy, right? Assuming you didn't hard lose the lane and the enemy is like way ahead of you in money, that is the spike that... the first spike that will let you fight anyone in a 1v1 and probably win. And even in team fights, you're gonna be insane, right? Because at this point, we have double melee items, and we can easily take a team fight where we go in, right? We proc it, right? And we use blasted, and, you know, wait a bit, and proc it again. And suddenly, we're running on, you know, insane lifesteal, by the way, and insane spirit resist, and we're stealing spirit resist from the enemy, right? Like, the healing is crazy, the resist is crazy, right? We're at 18% bullet armor and 45% spirit armor, and I didn't even buy a single, you know, spirit resist item yet, which next we're getting Enchanter's Emblem. So, that's the base idea. In lane, we're chilling out until we get to level 2 on the blasted, okay? Then we can start fighting with the combo I just showed you, where we go 1, 3, 1. And the ram, you really only want to use to either get out, right, or to catch the enemy, right? There's a few tricks you can do with it. For example, if an Infernus dashes, immediately after he dashes, you can use the ram and keep him in the air, and then his dash goes to waste, and then you smack him down, and he can't get out, and he dies, right? So this is an ability you have to play around with. There's a lot of like nuances to it. You have to just keep in mind it's a very long cooldown. And a lot of the time you want to use it to get out as well, right? So the 1 and the 3 are my main fighting tools, and the 2 I only really use to finish off a kill, to catch someone off guard, or to get out from a fight, okay? So Billy is deceptively, like, he has an easy kit, but he's deceptively hard to play, where you can make a lot of choices. Okay, so we play the lane passively until level 2 of Blasted, and then we can fight. And again, number 1 rule on Billy, and I'll mention it again, number 1 rule is do not melee until they parry. Most people will parry really early. Remember, we're getting the value from our melee items anyways, because we are running bash down, right? And especially once it's maxed, we will get the life strike off. It counts as a heavy every time, right? So we will get the value from this, and I know if you're like a low, right, or you're like half HP, you really want to melee and get more health from Blasted, right? But a lot of the time it can backfire and you get parried. So again, the way we play the fight is we 1, 3, 1, and then we just wait for the enemy we shoot them, right? And they're gonna panic, they're gonna get low, and eventually they're gonna start parrying, and right after the parry is where you can smack them up to 4 times with the light melee, right? Okay. And that's the entire game flow. Also means, by the way, and this is going to come in handy later, you can also use the 1 to reload, right? So if you're still in a fight and you don't want to melee, 1 and you're back to full ammo, right? Because it counts as a heavy, so it's going to reload your entire magazine, right? Okay. And then we go into gun items. And as I explained earlier, if you were watching, Billy has the highest gun scaling, or some of the highest gun scaling in the game. He's 4th highest. Which means the longer the game goes, the more damage your gun will do. And this is why we're getting these 2 melee items early, because they're going to provide us insane damage, but also insane survivability, right? It's going to give us a lot of spirit resist, which is really valuable early, and a lot of healing and slowdown on the enemy. And then we go into straight gun items. And my items of choice here are Fleetfoot, Intensifying Magazine, and Escalating Resilience into Point Blank. And all of these 4 have a purpose, right? Remember how I said you don't get slowed down while using light melees on Billy, right? We always want to be as close as possible to the enemy, because the gun fall-off is actually quite big, right? So on long distance, you don't really do a lot of gun damage, right? As you can see. So we want to be as close as possible. Fleetfoot allows us to do that, and we can keep on shooting, right? And we can still use the light melee if we need to, right? So this is like our chase item, and it's our item that first gives us mobility to where we can keep on chasing kills or can get out. Intensifying Magazine seems kind of random until you realize the base ammo on this character is quite low, right? And I want to keep on shooting as long as possible without having to risk a melee, right? I can always go for a light melee to reload, but it's just nicer to have more bullets in the mag. And if you do it properly on a character like Billy, right, you will basically have intensifying up, and if you look at the bottom left, it shows you, right? You will be up at max basically all the time. And if you're only using like a quick melee to reload, right, it barely falls off. So notice on the damage amplification, if you play it correctly and you keep on shooting no matter what, right, you will always be basically on max of intensifying magazine, right? Which also means it's really good for farming, by the way, right? Because you can just keep on shooting a camp, right, with extra damage, and then just, you know, whenever you have to reload, you have a melee and you just keep on shooting. So at that point, your farming speed becomes quite insane too. Now, Billy also has a really high fire rate on his gun, which makes it an amazing pick for escalating. Escalating, even more ammo, right? But a few bullets, and suddenly we had 40% bullet armor, which means now you might think in the fight, wait, if I have both 40% bullet armor, right, and then I proc Spirit Snatch, suddenly we're at 40-40 resists, right? So we're incredibly tanky already, and that's basically gonna be up the entire fight, right? Because you're always either gonna shoot or you're gonna use your bash down, right? So at this point, you're incredibly tanky, And you can take this a step further, and you don't have to buy this item, but I love Fury Trance. Because we're not really using a lot of abilities, I'm running Fury Trance. Fury Trance silences us, but it gives us fire rate, which is amazing for, you know, our gun damage. Plus, it gives us 40% extra spirit resist, right? And now, all of a sudden, if you look at the resist, we're now at 64% spirit armor, you know, depending on how many spirit snatches we hit, right? But the beauty of Fury Trance, or the reason why, in my opinion, Fury Trance is insane on this character, is you really don't use a lot of spells, right? Assuming you don't want to use the ult in fight, you go in, you 1, 3, 1, and then your cooldown, all your abilities are on cooldown other than the 1, right? So the combo would now be 1, 3, 1, and then you just pop Fury Trance and run them down and just light melee to reload, right? And then you get unsilenced and you can use more spells once they come back up, right? Okay, and that's the entire gameplay loop. Now, how do we include the ultimate? And how does the ultimate make this build even better? So now, the ultimate gives us a slowing hex effect on every enemy it hits. Slowing hex effect means they can't use their movement abilities, which means you can trap someone like a Mina, you can trap someone like a Mirage, like a Wraith, like an Infernus, and so many other characters, and they can't use their movement abilities. Mirage won't be able to use Tornado, Wraith won't be able to use Teleport, Mina won't be able to use Teleport, Infernus won't be able to use Flame Dash, right? So it's a permanent slowing hex as long as the ult runs, so for this duration. And then they get it pulled into you, right? So what do we do after they get pulled into you? Obviously, we use the bash down, right? So in later game fights, or even in early game fights, if you have the ult, a good combo you can do is, you go in, you chain them, and then you wait until they get pulled, and you smack them down. That's the entire combo, right?
Let's see which one of you rich assholes has what it takes to stop me.
Rich assholes. Okay, and then we go Silencer. Which seems really weird, right? Silencer? So, there is an effect on Silencer. Your bullets reduce the target's outgoing spirit damage, right? That's what it says. Until you realize this also works on melees. So, then you realize it also works on your 1. Which means every single person ever in a fight that I hit with my bash down will get silenced. Or not, sorry, will not get silenced. They will do 25% less spirit damage, okay? So all they have to do is one tick, bang, and all 3 of them get the debuff. And I know it doesn't look like it lasts for a long time, but it actually lasts for the full 6 seconds of the debuff. And you can always reapply this, right? So you can do a smackdown and then keep on shooting, right? And as long as you keep on reapplying, they will do less spirit damage.
Let's see which one of you rich assholes.
And then because your fire rate is so high, right? Let's say you start the fight with a bash down, and then you just go for one target, right? Bash down, 3, 1, and then you just hunt one of them down, and because your fire rate is so fast, they also instantly get silenced as well. So now they can't get out anymore, right? And then you proc Fury Trance, you know. And that's the entire gameplay loop. Now, you can decide to run Rapid Recharge earlier. Sometimes I like doing it. This is just like a quality of life upgrade, right? The reason I don't think you need more than 2 bash downs is you use your first bash down usually at the start of the fight, right? Then you proc Plastered, and then you have a second one ready whenever you need it, right? To reload, to gain health back, right? Or to apply Spirit Snatch / Life Strike on the enemy. This is just gonna make it so you have even more. So you're like, you know, it's like a good quality of life late game upgrade in my opinion. To where you can just keep on, you know, applying your reloads. So let me give you a full breakdown of a game, what it would look like on Billy, okay? You play the lane passively until level 2 of Blasted, okay? After that, you can start fighting, engaging in the lane. In the lane, you do wanna weave in light melees, because in the lane you just don't do much damage yet, right? With your gun. And after laning stage, doesn't matter if you win it or lose it, there's another trick you can do. Billy is amazing at stealing enemy jungle farm. Why? Because the Blasted ability works on creeps, which means it also works on sinners. So what you can do is, you go into the enemy jungle, you proc Blasted, and you just start hitting enemy sinners. And you will notice, I'm not really losing a lot of HP here. In fact, if you look at my overall HP pool, I'm actually gaining HP, right? Because I'm getting overshield, right? The number really doesn't change. Which means you can sit in the enemy jungle, take all their sinners, and if anyone comes into your room, you go on them. And as a nice side effect, you will have blasted ready, right? Because the entire time where you farm the enemy jungle, you keep blasted up, so you're ready to fight whenever. If someone contests you in that double sinner room on the enemy, for example, if they come in, you chain them, right? You have blasted up, you smack them down, and you just kill them, right? So he's incredibly good at farming enemy jungle. Why do I mention enemy jungle and not your own? You can also very easily farm your own jungle really fast. And he's a great jungler in general, right? The more you go to get gun items, the faster he becomes, right? So he's a great jungler in general. But unlike any other character, if you steal enemy jungle as another character, you tend to be low, right? Because you're taking so much damage from the sinners, you're taking damage from enemy creeps in the jungle. But this guy is basically always full HP. And again, because you have blasted on, you're always ready to fight, right? So as long as you have blasted on and you extend it, you will not die in the enemy jungle. So he's like the best character in the game to steal enemy jungle with. So usually what I do is I play my lane out, and then 8 minutes, no matter what, no matter if I lost or won the lane, I try to make my way over to the enemy jungle and steal as many sinners as possible. That's gonna give me a massive spike that will lead me towards the main fighting items that I get, right? Like usually after lane, I'm around here where I have Spirit Snatch, maybe, right? And even if I don't have Spirit Snatch, I'm close to Spirit Snatch. So after lane, it would look something like this. And, you know, then I hit a bunch of sinners, and suddenly I have Life Strike, and suddenly I have a max bash down. And then I can start joining team fights. And at that point on, I'm just really strong at all points in the game, right? Which brings me back to the intro of the video. Again, Billy not a melee character. You shoot your gun mostly, you only use your one to reload, and you really just only want to weave in some light melees to keep on reloading, right? So if you play Billy and you realize you're getting parried a lot, just try to melee less, right? Just shoot, and you will realize most players, even up to Eternus, eventually will panic parry, and then you can just smack them down, right? Your one does all of what you need for the melees, right? Your one heals you with Blasted, and your one heals you with Life Strike, and it steals the enemy's HP and Spirit Power with Spirit Snatch, right? So, yeah. After that, right, we stole the sinners, we start fighting. You will gain money just by fighting a lot, and you do want to fight a lot in mid-game on Billy. He's just really strong mid-game, right? Every time you have chain gang, you want to look for something. This ult is insane. The more you practice it, the more you will realize how insane it is. And I guess we can look at the rest of the skill build. After I max my 1, I then max my 3, right? Because, again, that's even more HP that I get with every bash down, with every light melee I do. And then I get a second point in chain gang, because at that point I get 30 extra resists, by the way. So if you do the math, I'll be like at like 80% resist on both if I play everything perfectly. So I'm unkillable in the ult, basically, right? So I get a second point in this, and then I get 2 points in Rising Ram, just for more weapon damage. You can decide to max the ult first, because it also gives you Unstoppable at the end. Then I max ult, and then I max Rising Ram. And that's the skill build I'm running currently. Let's look at some of the tech you can do on Billy. Using your chain gang to steal mid-boss. So if you want to contest mid-boss, or you want to secure mid-boss, at the point where the mid-boss dies, right? All you have to do really is you go in, dash in, and chain gang in the pit. There's going to be multiple enemies there in the pit, and they will probably not be able to get out of your line of sight in time. And if they try, then they have to leave the pit and can't go for the rejuve, right? So what you do is you jump in, ult, right? And then you pull them out. You pull them out of the rejuve, right? So the way this would look like is, rejuve is, you know, imagine the rejuve is here. You pull the entire enemy team, or like, I had multiple fights where I pulled 6 out, but you pull multiple people out, and then your team can just go easily for the melees, right? Or the parries, because you will just, your job is basically take the enemy out of the pit. Even if you don't have Rising Ram, you can still, you know, go in, use your ult, and then like run out, right? You can close, or you can close enough distance in time to get the enemy out of the pit. So he's amazing for mid-boss fights. He's also amazing to initiate. If the enemy team, let's say, pushes your walker as like 5-6, right? You can come from the zip line, and then once you see the enemy, you just jump off the zip line, ult, right? And again, in ult, you're almost unkillable, right? You pull them into your walker, and then you hit the bash down. But I really want you to know that even without the ult, as long as you have blasted up, you want to fight. You do get significantly weaker when you don't have blasted, because you're missing the bonus weapon damage and you're missing the healing from the melees you do, right? And when I say the melees, that's also the bash down melees, right? So you really wanna have blasted on while you're fighting. As long as you have it on and you're somewhat healthy, you are one of the tankiest characters in the game, right? If we get the base build, even if we don't buy silencer, as I showed you, right? The resists are pretty crazy, you know, especially if you hit like 1 or 2 like bash downs. At this point, you know, we're sitting on like, let me check, don't want to lie, 72% spirit resist and 46% bullet resist. How do we die? And again, this is even crazier if you do the exact same thing while having ult on. So with ult, we're at 80% spirit resist and 60% bullet resist. So at that point, you don't die anymore, right? Other items you can buy in case you don't like the silencer, right? You can run rapid recharge earlier. You can very easily replace Fury Trance with it if you want, if you don't really like Fury Trance. The Empiric Burst is another amazing option because, especially in combination with Fury Trance, because, right, if you take a fight and let's say you're like chasing someone and you can't quite catch up to melee range, right? And you're about to run out of ammo. You just proc the Empiric Burst, you know, and then you have your ammo back. And because you do so much gun damage, right, you're gonna hit like a truck and you're gonna heal like a truck. Just wanna show you the lifesteal at this point, by the way. You know, if you proc this both, like, the lifesteal is crazy, and this is just with gun, you know. You don't even have to melee anymore at that point. So, the Empiric Burst is an amazing option. And Transcendent cooldown, in my opinion. You can also very easily run this. Because having the ult... Or you don't even need Transcendent, by the way. I don't know why I have Transcendent here. It's like super luxury. You can go Superior cooldown. Because Superior cooldown is gonna really reduce your ability cooldowns by quite a lot. Chain Gang is so valuable, right? You're gonna reduce your Chain Gang cooldown from 122 seconds to 92, right? Bash down more often. But more importantly, the main thing with Billy, you have blasted more often, right? Because once blasted goes on cooldown, it's really quite a long downtime. Without like cooldown reduction, a lot of cooldown reduction, it's gonna be around like a 26-second cooldown. And I know it said 0 here because I had no cooldown on, but it's 26 seconds where you really can't do much of anything. And if you came here to figure out how to counter Billy, I can also give you a few tips. If you're a Billy hater and you're just trying to figure out, how do I beat this character? What do I do? The main thing really is you don't want to panic parry. You want to wait until you realize that Billy is about to be out of ammo. Because the one thing that hurts Billy is actually manually reloading. The reload is very slow, right? This is one of the slowest reload animations in the game. So Billy really does not like to reload. And especially if a Billy is low, you can almost be sure he's gonna start meleeing, because the melee is gonna be the only thing that brings him health back, right? So what I can recommend you is don't fight a Billy close range, right? If you get into his bashdown range and he hits his combo on you, you're gonna be very low. Stay out of his range. And in lane, you can very easily punish him by keeping your distance and just shoot him. Because medium range, again, at the start, he won't be able to trade. Billy has to get into you to do damage, right? So, stay out of his radius. Otherwise, that's really it. Like, Billy is really strong right now. He's S tier. He's not, like, the best character right now of the new ones. I would argue that Drifter for sure is better, and Victor is probably better as well. You know, the meta is still developing, so this might change depending on when you're watching this video. But I think no matter what the nerfs or buffs are, I think we covered how to play Billy in this video. Again, let me know if you have any questions in the comments. And I'll see you guys next time. See you, friends. Bye-bye.